Comedian Marc Maron is continually on his press tour for his new special, calling out, it's being described as your anti-woke comedians, but let me explain. If you're right-wing, there are some comedians who are politically right-wing who I find hilarious because they deal with current events and subject matter in a new and interesting and funny way. That's the key part of being a comedian, is to be funny, right? But what happened was you had the anti-woke moral panic, and there were definitely cases of, wacky people being too wacky and institutions being too wacky, and pushback against that's fine. But it cultivated this whole environment of people who kind of got broken into believing that the only comedy they can do, or a bunch of their comedy, should be targeted at this one, people got too woke, huh? Trans people, pronouns, woo, And Marc Maron is saying that bit eventually is just going to get too tired, and he sees it as already worn out. So where does that place some in the Rogan sphere who put their eggs so much in that basket? But now, woke, as Piers Morgan would say, is dead, and the left lost, Trump's in power, and all of the examples of outrageous things in politics right now that are relevant are MAGA-related things. And so if you have built your brand on sort of, without explicitly saying it, defending and giving leverage to MAGA arguments through the random people on TikTok being wacky and too woke are the greatest threat to society, and then all of a sudden there's no way to make that argument, what do? Do you just go on stage and do another, so men are women? I heard the woman had a penis. So here's him on Howie Mandel's show. Oh, here you go.
Jeselnik having an issue with people like Tony Hinchcliffe, who he's saying uses profanity or just shock value comedy. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, at this point, it's lazy and sloppy and hackneyed. To be in a fucking club where, I'm walking down the hall at the comedy club, at the Comedy Store, and, in one room, someone's doing their bit about trans people, and then I get down the hall and there's someone on stage going, well, I guess I got to do my bit about trans people. Like, no, you don't. You don't. It's hack now. I mean, you guys got the freedom you wanted. You can now say whatever you want. They're defeated. Their rights have been denied. The policies that you guys encouraged with your stupid material are now policy. And now, half the people under the umbrella of anti-woke, we've lost a tremendous amount of democratic-leaning ideas and movements. So whether they knew it or not, that's what they were spearheading. So now it's reality, and you want to still keep kicking them?
I don't know that the comedians have had that much power.
Are you fucking out of your mind?
No, I'm being serious.
Joe Rogan. I'm not gonna.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You can't separate. If the movement is we're being censored. No, you're not. You're not. There's no constitutional censorship issue with your free speech. You say things, and in a democratic shit show of an environment, like Twitter or whatever, there's cultural pushback. And I'm not saying that it wasn't. It was pretty bad in terms of people getting canceled and stuff. And I agree that was an issue, but that's a specific issue. To frame it as some sort of free speech problem was a misdirect. It wasn't. It wasn't a free speech problem. It was that people were getting cultural pushback. That is not a constitutional issue. No one was being put in jail for saying anything. That's a free speech issue. But my problem is you're going to start talking about anti-woke, and that's going to be your point of view. That's going to be your ideological, grounding for what you do. Okay, that's fine. But why does it have to be the same four fucking things? It's like they talk about the same shit. And I don't know a better definition of hack.
Yeah, there's so much there, and I have another clip of him more directly name-checking Rogan, but that's, if you don't keep up much with this particular set of comedians, or just kind of the comedy world, or the cultural discourse, some of this might not resonate as much, but it got so irritating. Not because I don't like jokes that are targeted at the left. I can make fun of me for all I care, if it's funny. And there were times when people would very thoughtfully point to the absurdities, like there's so many absurdities that you can make fun of, like we do constantly on the right. There are, of course, going to be absurdities of certain people on the left. And so pointing to those or movements or cultural shifts or institutional changes that went too far or got too funky. And I've heard people make really, really funny jokes about that. I think occasionally we've touched on those things and it's been sort of lighthearted and funny. But definitely comedians have done that well. But then what happened was there was like this fad, and people who didn't want to give maybe more time and effort to figuring out how do you give more unilateral humor to these different political issues just locked in on like 3 of the same jokes over and over and over. And they weren't even jokes. Like, it's almost like they would walk out on stage and go, trans people, weird, huh? It's like, wait, that wasn't even a well-crafted joke. And then what was happening was, without even knowing it, you want to make jokes about whatever you want, great. But without knowing it or knowing it, some of these people were giving a lot of cultural fodder to the idea that your only focus should be what random people on college campuses are saying about 38 genders. Like, that would be what they're saying our focus should be on, in a way that, and that's what he was touching on with they would call themselves victims of censorship, when really it was just cultural pushback. And you could be disgusted with certain cases of people being quote unquote canceled and getting too much pushback for things they shouldn't have. But getting canceled on social media is not the same as the government infringing on your rights, which is the First Amendment issue, which is what then Trump, riding on the back of this anti-woke moral panic, is actually doing. So the actual cases of censorship and attacks on the First Amendment that we go through a bunch with Trump using his governmental power were enabled by an environment that comedians played a part in lazily putting all of their political emphasis on what was far less relevant than the centers of power, like we've gone through a bunch. And that's what I think he's kind of articulating that he's fed up with. And then just as a consumer of comedy, it got really boring with some of these folks because they were one trick pony. We get it. All right, you're punching down. But now your guy has all the power. And all of a sudden you're a whole lot less. There we go. Funny about those subjects. All right, here's another example on a different podcast.
Self-life is going to be.
While we're going through this, if you appreciate the show, please do click the subscribe button. And if you want to get yourself an energy drink that solves the problem I wanted to be solved so bad for myself, but couldn't find a drink that I actually liked and was good for my gut microbiome, wasn't destroying my body with disgusting chemicals, didn't have all these artificial flavors, etc., you can go to drinkpep.com. It's my drink, it's my family drink, and support it there.
I don't know, I think that it's so effectively tribalized at this point. It really comes down to material. I mean, at what point, it's like whatever they represented in terms of policy, and it's not a stretch. It's like they won. Trans people are frightened. They have no ability to get health care anymore, and they're afraid of being alive and have no freedom left. So that's done. When do you stop with the jokes? And like immigrants, okay, well, they're being ripped away from their homes, and they're all terrified, and okay, so that's done. When do you stop with the jokes?
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to pick on the vulnerable and the marginalized, but I mean, they're down.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
they're down.
Why do you got to keep hitting them unless you're a hack? Now there's a question.
Mark,
He comes in swinging.
Yeah. What do you think the Austin shelf life is going to be?
Well, I don't know.
So the Rogan Austin thing. And there's plenty of really funny people who are in that world, but it's so hard because social media now drives everything. And so I don't know. I really don't know how we proceed with thoughtful political discourse and topical, relevant comedy in an environment where we're being forced, and comedians are experiencing the same, just like how Elon, how powerful he was, and he still had the same radicalization through his own rabbit holes on social media. And that's happening to all of these people in their respective echo chambers. And it's causing tribalized, yes. I do think that's a part of it, but just kind of detached from each other and from reality phenomenon. We're in that world where you are only seeing, we're all being pushed into only seeing what's going to be the most provocative and indicative of the people that you don't like being as outrageous as they possibly can be. And man, Fox News is trying to rev that up. This is a new clip, a new one.
Up next, yet another Sydney Sweeney ad is causing panic on the left. Plus,
you know, it's similar. The comedians who put all their eggs in all we should be talking about is how woke went mad. And it wasn't really nice, precise cultural critiques, but just like, nah, that's it. And I can't possibly point to the horrendous things going on over here because, oh my gosh, this is crazy. What happened? Gender's out of control. Furries, they're humping each other. I saw in the subway. Hey, subways are crazy, right? I was on the subway and I saw a giraffe person dressed as a giraffe humping an elephant. Whoa, the left's gone mad, right? So, but then, woke's dead by their admission. They got all the power. All the jokes are over here now. And all of the relevant political analysis is over here now. And so, they're out of a job. And Fox News, what are they going to fill all their time with? Tariffs? The impact of tariffs? Are they going to talk about Trump's messing up of one thing after another? No. So then they're still figuring out a way to talk about Sydney Sweeney. Or Gunther Eagleman, an account on X saying liberal trigger, another Sydney Sweeney ad just dropped. And Yashar Ali said, this came out in June and liberals had nothing to say about it. And Gunther said, cry more. I mean, it's so dilapidated, our political discourse. Then a MAGA account said, breaking, sororities in America are going viral after a new trend's causing liberal meltdowns nationwide. And it's just sorority girls dancing. And let me tell you, I've seen not one. I saw a few, Sydney Sweeney, not one single liberal meltdown about sorority girls dancing. Why? Because sorority girls be dancing. That's kind of like their thing. Okay? So, but these accounts, what else are they going to do? This is what's so fascinating. And what's causing some of the anti-woke humor to become so dry and boring is like, that's not really as relevant as it used to be, but you don't feel comfortable shifting because you're afraid your now political audience will be mad at you. And similarly here, it's kind of like, well, do we invent culture wars that we're fighting? Literally, you have people trying to bring back up the bathroom debate. What? That was like so 2017. And I hope naively that maybe like the Epstein thing gets some of them. I've seen some of the right-wing accounts start going, all right, now it's time to, in a comedic sense, if we're going to be talking about what's relevant, make fun of, try to induce laughs through the mockery of the absurd that we're seeing with the Trump administration. Or if you're just a political analyst, being annoyed at that. And then hopefully that crack breaks open further and they can address the other aspects of the absurdity of Trumpism. But many of them are just going to keep chugging along with the liberals can't handle pretty women or whatever, even if it's not even a real thing. Because there were real things. If you got humped by a furry on a subway, that would be absurd. And you could make jokes about it or you could be mad about it. But man, they're just making this one up. I think people are misunderstanding me. I know we have to stop the epidemic of subway humpings of fake giraffes. I get it. I'm with you. That along with the litter boxes that aren't in schools what they say are. We got to stop it all. But Maybe we should focus on things that are more relevant. I showed you this clip.
I think this conversation is really fucking stupid, and I have no other way to describe it. Like, there are like 5 dumbass liberals on the internet who decided that this ad was offensive, and then the entire conservative ecosystem decided to make it the biggest story of the day because they didn't want to talk about the economy, they didn't want to talk about Trump being in the Epstein files, they didn't want to talk about anything else that's going on. They made their entire personalities about this. Woke, Pierce, you've got a book coming out that woke is dead. You can't let woke die because you'll have no business model. You'll have no book to sell. You'll have no guest to book. Nobody who's interested in what you have to say.
Yes, I love the reacting guy. Bam. Yeah. And I think it's hard so vaguely to get at why that Marc Maron clip is so much resonating with me. But this is it. You're seeing all these people and they won't let go of the game they were playing the last few years. While often I was critical of it, and so many people went so far, and so many people got unjustifiably demonized, and there was this weird moral panic component to it, there was at least some substance in some cases that could blossom a flower of something. But what? Jane gave me such a weird look when I did that. What is this? That's come on, child. But now it's just not, and you can't. It drives me crazy. I already did a whole segment on this, but you can't sell a book saying woke is dead and then keep talking about how the woke mob can't handle Sydney Sweeney. And I saw mainstream outlets did reporting and did studying of the social media analytics to see what really came of the Sydney Sweeney thing. And it was what my intuition was completely correct. It was not a big topic. Liberal accounts were not talking about it in a major way. It was not nearly as relevant as Trump's quote unquote cankles, not my word. It was not as relevant as Trump cheating at golf, whatever the thing was. And the right wing was the one who made it relevant. It only started getting tons of views and became a political conversation when they went, the left can't handle the Sydney Sweeney wore jeans. And so we have the best case here of what I've been yelling about for years now, which is we are going to social media algorithm ourselves and cynical exploitation of social media algorithm ourselves into obscurity. You're going to have Gunther Eagleman staring at a wall at a mythical liberal and screaming at him while we're way over there talking about something completely different. And he's arguing with the wall there. And then he turns to a Sydney Sweeney poster. Where are your hands, Gunther? And then he turns back and starts screaming. And then he turns back to Sydney Sweeney. Then he turns back and screaming. And that's going to be our political discourse. And I hate it. I've had more bad days recently doing this than usual. Because I'm just it's not even just where we are. It's where I'm worried we're going to be. I don't know if our brains are able to handle social media, I guess. We've cheapened our political discourse, thus cheapening humor that's connected to that. And that's a bummer.